Welcome to the Workology podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology podcast, sponsored by Clear Company. I'm on a mission to find out more about the value of HR certification. At Workology, we're an approved provider of both SHRM and HRCI. I'm also excited because we are now offering SHRM certification prep courses online starting in 2019. HR certification, I believe, is an important part of the HR industry. A Payscale study published in 2018 found that HR certification helps establish a great HR foundation for your career. Nearly 60% of chief human resource officers from the survey have an HR certification, while more than half of vice presidents of human resources also have HR credentials. The survey also found that HR certifications have an impact positively on your compensation levels. Let's talk to two more HR professionals, shall we, who are certified, and hear from them the value of HR certification and how it has positively impacted their career. I'm talking about both SHRM and HRCI certifications here. The goal is to provide someone who is thinking about taking their HR certification exam, whatever it is, insights from seasoned HR professionals. Welcome to the Workology podcast. Our next guest to talk about HR certification and her journey into human resources is Fidelphia Johnson. She's the Director and Strategic Human Resource Business Partner at PAC-J Investment Services. Hi there.
Hi Jessica. How are you?
I'm great. Let's talk about how you ended up in human resources and your path to where you are now.
Wow. Where do I start? What I had to say is that I do love working in the HR field, and it has never been an easy field to be in, but I stumbled upon it. I actually, when I came into HR, I had applied for a supervisor role. I wanted to work as a supervisor in a retail store. It used to be Bradley's, because I believe that supervisors do get more money. So I was chasing after the money. I was young and I wanted to work in a field that I would get to make more money. So when I went in to apply for the department supervisor role, the HR manager in that facility said, you know what, I do have a position open and I think you'll be perfect for it. And that position is an HR assistant manager. And I'm like, I don't have any experience in HR. Tuesday, after having spoken to you for 20 minutes, I think you're going to do great. And I'm like, okay, how much is the salary now? So she quoted me a rate, and I said, how much does the supervisor pay? She quoted me the supervisor rate. There was a difference about $2,000 between the two. So I said, let me go home and think about it, and I'll get back to you. So I went home, and I didn't call her in 2 days. So she called me back, and she said, are you interested in the role? And I said, well, if you think I can do it, I will give it a shot. So I went in and I started working. Retail industry is very hard, but I was up for the tax, and I worked with them for about 4 years, and I got exhausted, and I wanted to try something new because I still had that desire to be a manager. So I veered off into operation management, and I went into hospitality industry, and I work in a lot of departments. I happen to have the opportunity to be department head for different departments in the hospitality industry. And then I ended up back again in HR. So in a nutshell, I started off with HR, I veered off, and I came back in HR again.
Well, that's a story. And we've heard from some different folks here as I've been having these conversations. A lot of people started, including myself, in human resources in retail.
Wow. Yeah. I believe that if you work in retail, you can work in any HR department, because retail is very hard, and, the turnover is also very, very, very difficult to keep the pulse on it. And so if you can work in retail, you can work in any HR department anywhere in the world.
I agree. Well, let's talk a little bit about HR certification. So what HR certs do you hold and why do you keep them?
I am currently SPHR and SHRM SCP certified. My primary objective in obtaining two of these HR certifications, 1 month apart, was to prove to myself in the HR industry that, I'm good at what I do, and also to learn the latest best practices from the best minds in the field like yourself, Jessica. So that's why I went in, because I believe that, when you are working in a company and you are so much focused on the day-to-day employee relations and everything else that comes under the umbrella of HR, we tend to forget what is going on. Their HR is a revolving door in terms of my industry. More things are happening every day. So it was really exciting for me to be able to prove to myself that I'm keeping abreast with the latest trend in our industry, and also to pick on great minds like yourself, by buying your books and by going on your website, attending webinars, reading articles. And so I wanted to do it for myself more so, and also to see what is out there that I don't know of.
How do you think that having HR certification has helped your career?
While this was a great adventure for me, one thing I can tell you is that I have found that more than that, my few months of studies has equipped me to be invaluable for my organization, and also to be invaluable for my friends in the HR industry that are up and coming when they reach out to me and they ask me advice. When I started the journey, my certification journey, I didn't think that what I acquired through my self-study. I actually did a self-study, and I was able to do a self-study because there's so much materials out there on the marketplace that made me able to do that. And because I was able to do that, I am able to do my job a little bit better. I'm able to come to the table and present different ideas that I never had to before, because I didn't have that much exposure.
What advice do you have for somebody who is maybe thinking about taking an exam, whether it's SHRM or HRCI or something else? What do they need to do to be able to get the most out of it and then make sure they pass that exam?
My main advice for anyone that is working in the HR industry that is not certified, I recommend that they go out and get certified, because they will be surprised on how much they are going to learn that you don't know. A perfect example, there are people that have worked in organizations that have never done mergers and acquisitions. So by taking the certification, you get exposure into mergers and acquisitions. There are people that have never done payroll, even though they work in HR, or have never had to deal with compensation. All of these areas in HR that some of us are not privy to or don't have enough exposure to. Once you go on the journey to take your certification, you open yourself up, because you don't know what questions is going to come up on the certification. So I employ people. It's a very difficult certification to sit for, because we don't know everything in the HR industry. No matter how many years of experience you have, there are things out there that you don't know. So I highly recommend people to go out there and buy books, read, and make use of all the materials that are on the internet, especially the HR quizzes, the HR, seminars, and all the other HR organizations that are out there, and they are always, promoting other HR concepts and services out there to get themselves engaging, so that you can have a great exposure, and also to sit for the examination, because that makes them, stand out in the organization. People come to them because they feel like they are an expert in what they do.
Where can people go to connect with you and talk and maybe ask some questions about your journey to HR and certification?
I am on Twitter, I am on LinkedIn, and I also have my side hustle, my consulting business at fideliajohnson.com. So when they go on there, one of the things that I did with my website is that I have my telephone number, I have my email address. I make sure every page has that information. So I am very easy to locate. If you go on there, you can easily locate me on any of the social media platforms.
Awesome. Well, we'll link to some of those sites for you on the transcript of the podcast, but I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your journey. You have a very interesting background, and I love hearing stories like yours.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you are listening to the Workology podcast sponsored by Clear Company. We're talking about the value of HR certification. Last week, I hosted a webinar on how to best prepare for your SHRM certification exam. We had a lot of questions, and I found there is a lot of uncertainty around how much we should be preparing for our HR certification exams. I'm talking about reading the learning system, books, quizzes, flashcards, talking with a friend or a peer. I want to talk about this for a minute. Consistency is so important in order to retain knowledge and ultimately pass your HR exam. This technique, consistent studying and learning over time, is called spacing. The spacing effect helps you retain information, and a study by Dartmouth College on the spacing effect had two groups. One was told a speech 6 times in a single day versus another group who was told that same speech 3 times over the course of 3 days. The study found that students who received the information repetitively, but over longer periods of time, remembered that speech more thoroughly, and even a month later could recall the speech versus what I call the learning dump group. Dumping that knowledge in a cram session is much easier. It takes less effort. We just simply spend an entire weekend in our SHRM learning system going over questions, or we're sitting in a review class. However, it is not an effective method for long-term learning. And since the SHRM exams have these situational judgment-based and scored questions, you cannot just use what I call memorization and regurgitation methods. I did this, it got me all through college. I recommend that you do the following. Number 1, follow a regular study schedule, 3 to 5 hours a week. 2, mix it up. Podcasts, flashcards, quizzes, all important to reinforce that learning and that spacing over time. And 3, finding accountability partners, someone to study, discuss, apply, and use that knowledge that you've just spent all this time reading and learning about. You can catch more of these tips as well as other study best practices, I have a bunch, by viewing the replay of the presentation. You can go to Workology, or you can also access that presentation at workolo.gy/SHRM CERT exam. That's Workology, workolo.gy/SHRM CERT exam.
This podcast is sponsored by Clear Company. Clear Company is the world's fastest growing talent management platform, allowing companies to easily hire, retain, and engage more A-players. Visit clearcompany.com to sign up for a free demo.
Let's dive into our next interview. The HR certification conversation continues, and I am talking now with Anthony Paradiso. He is a human resource business partner at Industrial UI Services. He has a distinguished HR career, which I am excited to share with you more about. Hi, Anthony.
Hello, how are you?
I am wonderful. Let's talk about your career in HR. How did you get here?
Sure. So I actually been with my company for almost 11 years. That's when I started my HR career. I actually was a mortgage consultant way back, and it just wasn't for me. So I left the position. And I went on Craigslist. Yes, it's Craigslist, which is, I guess, I'm finding it's still around. I went on Craigslist. I have the job that I have now. I applied for the position. It was more of an account management or executive position at the time. But I was not looking really for HR. It just kind of fell into me. And now, 11 years later, I am a business partner with the company, and I handle a lot of the employee relations matters. We also are a company that specializes in unemployment insurance cost control, so we handle a lot of that. And as far as volunteer leadership positions, I do a lot of diversity and inclusion items with our programs with SHRM.
Awesome. Well, and I want to point out that because you're selling yourself a little short here, you have a master's degree in HR and business, is what I'm seeing here too. And then you also have your SHRM CP. So walk us through that. When did you get that? What was it like? How has your SHRM cert worked for you?
So I actually got it recently. I've been wanting to get it for a while, but just, this life happens. So I got my certification about it was actually right after the SHRM National Conference, so just a little after that this year. And I took a class at a local university for the SHRM certification, and which I really recommend for people. It does keeps you paced, it keeps you on target. There's so much material to study, so I definitely highly recommend taking a class, not necessarily at your university, but you can take them through your SHRM local chapter. Has them often, sometimes they're even less expensive that way. So if cost is an issue, you could always look through it that way. You could also study on your own. SHRM has their own individual learning. How you could use the learning system, but on your own time and your own pace. So that's how I prepared. I took a class about I think I took it last December, so a year ago. So I took the class and decided to wait a little bit even after that to take the test, so I can study a little more on my own time and make sure I get everything, and just if I had any questions, I could reach out to my colleagues and all that good stuff.
So what was the test like for you? I mean, obviously it turned out in your favor, but what insights can you share maybe with folks who are getting ready to take their exam about what it was like and how you think they should prepare beyond maybe like a course or the learning system? Is there any other suggestions that you have?
I think for me, because I'm one of those people, I'm not a good test taker. I am, when I went to my bachelor's degree, I was in a program where it was mostly essays, that kind of stuff. I was a philosophy, politics, and law major, so got a lot of it was just a lot of essays where there really wasn't multiple choice. So I really recommend people to take as many practice tests as possible. Definitely study the material as much as you can, but I really would emphasize to really crack down and take as many practice tests, because it kind of gets you thinking how SHRM thinks and how you should answer things. And you could take a pre-test, which kind of just you kind of just take before studying. You can kind of see what areas you need work on, because at the end of the pre-test it divvies out to you some different. It breaks down to you what areas your weaknesses and your strengths. So you should really focus more on your weaknesses, really the most. But obviously, look at your strengths too. But really focus in on the weaknesses, and again, practice tests. Also, a recommendation really is just study. Really pick a time period that is good for you. If there's two windows, there's two testing windows. So make sure you pick the one that's best for you, the one that you're not going to have you're not going to have as much time going on there, because there is one. Or if you pick like the first testing period, which is I think December through February, you may want to schedule the test maybe January, February, just because December could be a little crazy with all the holidays. I also recommend if you take a class, whichever way you do it, either through a local SHRM chapter or through university, I recommend taking the test very soon after the class, because how our memories operate. Every week that goes by, you lose about 25% of what you remembered from the class. So really, I recommend it. I didn't do it, but most people do. Maybe I did it the wrong way. I did pass, luckily. So I do recommend that. And also I recommend really don't be hard on yourself. I know plenty of people that did not pass the first time. Don't, I know it can be daunting. It can be, it stinks to not pass it sometimes, but don't get too hard on yourself. Don't think that you're not a good HR professional if you don't pass the first time. And I'm not saying that you're not going to pass, but I'm just saying to you, don't get so caught up on it. If you don't pass the first time, you can take it again. There's no, they don't give you any, you're allowed to take one test per testing window. So again, just don't get hard on yourself too if anything happens. But again, hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully you pass the first time. But again, like I said, don't get hard on yourself. Don't get hard on yourself, because I will admit I actually was unsuccessful one time before. and I was very hard on myself, and I just recommend not to do that because it won't do you any good to do that. Just work, just see how you did and work on your weaknesses.
Well, let's talk about why you chose an HR certification. How has it, since you took the exam and passed, you think helped your career?
I think so, yeah. I think people do. They do look at you differently. I believe they do look at you as more of a strategic partner when you have your certification. I have noticed since I have mine, I've been noticing I've been doing more podcasts. Before my certification, I was heavily involved with SHRM and a blogger and all that good stuff. But I do find more things have come in line since the passing of my test. And really, it was really mostly for myself, honestly. My job didn't require it. It was just mostly I knew that I wanted to do it for myself, and it made me when I passed, it made me feel really good about myself and the profession I'm in, and it made me validate that I'm a good and that I'm a good strategic partner, HR business partner in the HR field.
Awesome. Well, where can people go maybe to connect with you? Is there a best place for them to connect with you to talk more?
Sure. I have my Twitter is my best way, or actually one of my ways. It's all things app. So it's ALLTHINGZ AP. That's on Twitter. You could also actually go. I just recently started Instagram just 2 days ago. So you could always do that too. It's the same as my Twitter account. And I am also on LinkedIn. Again, it's Anthony Paradiso. And I'm actually in the process of getting my website up for myself, but I don't have it yet. So I can't give it out. But once I have it, I'll put it on my social network.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about HR certification. Congrats on passing that your SHRM CP. That's exciting. And thanks for sharing some tips for our listeners.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are you stuck maintaining your HRCI and SHRM certifications? Learn by Workology is an on-demand learning system making recertification simple. Visit workology.com/learn or text Workology to 55678 to learn more. Text 55678 to Workology. Now, back to the podcast.
HR certification was critical to my human resources career success, and I'm not the only one. That same HR certification study found that over the course of 10 years, getting certified for HR professionals became increasingly valuable to HR pros from a pay perspective and for career acceleration. In 2008, the percent boost in pay associated with having any certification was 17%. The percent pay boost has climbed up and up and up, reaching close to 40% in 2016 before slightly dropping in the last 2 years. In 2018, the percent boost in pay associated with having an HR certification is 31.6%. I could do with 5% more, but 31.6%, outstanding. Just some food for thought if you're thinking about getting your HR certification. Of course, I would love for you to come on over and check out our new SHRM certification prep offering on Workology. It's under the products and HR certification section. Thank you for joining the Workology podcast, sponsored by Clear Company. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and until next time, you can visit Workology.com to listen to all our previous podcast episodes.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller Merrill provided by TotalPicture.com.